Hi, my name is Robert. This video is designed to give you step-by-step detailed instruction on completing the task at hand. Visit my YouTube channel and watch my disclaimer video. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you find the information you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. On my 850, I started hearing a pop or a clunk here and there. It was just occasional. Then it got a little worse. A little bit of popping more. Most of the time when I start off, well, turns out that the inner joint on the driver's side CV axle is worn out and it's starting to give me problems. I need to take the car on the road. I need to tow a trailer. So I'm not going to try to tow a trailer with a bad axle. If the axle fails, pops out or breaks, I'll be stranded on the highway. So I'm gonna go ahead and do this CV axle on my 850. Set the parking brake and put something before the front and back tires to try to minimize the car from rolling when you have it up on jacks until you get it on jack stands. First thing you want to do is take your small screwdriver, pry out the center hub cap, and then figure out what size bolts you have. Several of these have different size bolts. Last one I did had a 32. This one appears to have a 36. So I'm going to put the 36 on there and break it loose. Okay, I got my 36mm socket, my 1/2-inch breaker bar, and my 4-foot breaker pipe. I've tried this with 3-foot breaker pipe. It just doesn't seem to work good. Slide the breaker bar all the way over like that. Then put some body lean in it. It should break it right loose. After you got the bolt broke loose, go ahead and break loose the lug nuts on the wheel. Next, you want to go ahead and jack up this side of the car and install the jack stand. Okay, jack up the car. Never ever get under this car with that jack. That's one of the most unstable jacks I've ever seen in my life. I normally put the jack stand right there under that tripod, and I lower the jack on it and leave the jack in place. I normally crank the jack down about 8 times after I make contact on the jack stand. Now go ahead and remove the wheel. After you get the wheel off, go ahead and remove the bolt for the axle the rest of the way. Next thing you need to do is take the control arm off. If you have the one-piece control arms, I recommend taking it off at the A-frame or at the frame of the car. If you're fortunate enough to have the 2-piece, I recommend pulling those 3 bolts right there and taking it loose at the ball joint. It's almost impossible to get the ball joint out of that socket without taking those frame bolts out. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 13mm on those and take those out. Okay, when you take the control arm loose, and I'm getting ready to break loose my ball joint from the control arm, you normally have a situation where your wheel assembly tries to sway right or left. You got to be careful because you got your brake hose there. Try not to let that swivel out of control. If you do, you may damage your brake line. So make sure you have a good grip on it. I normally use a scissor jack like this to stabilize my hub assembly once I break it loose from the control arm. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. Once you get your control arm loose or out of its hinges, you want to go ahead and tap this. I just give it one tap in. Well, this one's already loose, so I don't have to tap it. It wasn't seized up in the hub. So I'm going to go ahead and move this over so I can have better access to the CV axle. Okay, I got the CV axle loose from the hub. Now I need to bust it loose from the transmission back there, and that can be a task. But what I do is I have this carpenter's crowbar used for pulling up nails out of decks and hardwood floors and stuff. I normally take this and lay it back and against the transmission there, tuck it under the CV axle, and then I hit it right here. So I'm gonna go ahead and hit it and see if it pops it loose. Hitting it didn't pop it loose, so I leaned on it, and as you can see, the CV axle did come loose from the transmission. Since the car is leaning that way, you probably won't lose any transmission fluid. So you can inspect the seal and get ready to put the new axle in. Make sure your clip ring came out with the axle. So I'm gonna go ahead and slide the replacement axle in. Okay, I slid the replacement axle in place. I turned it a little bit until the splines lined up in the transmission, and then it was kind of stuck, maybe because of the clip. So I tapped it in using the joint, which is not a real good thing to do, but that's how I do it. I just try not to hit it too hard. So now I'm gonna go and look in on the other side and see if it's made it up tight. Okay, I'm coming down here looking under the transmission, and I see the CV axle there, and it does look like the axle is made it up good to the transmission. So I'm gonna give it a couple more gentle pushes, and then I'm gonna move forward. Okay, with the CV axle in the transmission, you grab the joint and push it in and out. You should hear it just clicking and not coming out. So I'm gonna go ahead and call that secure in. Now I'm gonna take this and line the splines up into the hub and push it through the hub and snug that bolt down. Okay, I was holding the axle from the back, just twitching it back and forth a little bit, and was able to push it through the hub. So the axle's now set. So I'm gonna go ahead and put my ball joint in place so I don't risk messing up my brake lines. Okay, I got my ball joint bolts on and torqued down, and I don't know why, but every time I do this job, I somehow knock one of the brake dust caps out. So I'm gonna put that back in the caliper, and now I'm gonna snug this wheel down some more. And if you had put the control arms in on the back side, you want to get those bolts torqued down before you lower the axle bolt on. Okay, whenever you go to hook your control arm back up, if you take these A-frame bolts out, before you torque those down, you need to load them. You need to load the control arm. When the car sits naturally, that control arm is right about horizontal, which means it's laying flat. And when you have the car up on jack stands or whatever, that control arm is sagging down, pointing down toward the ground from the frame out to the wheel. Well, that's not the natural position of it. So if you torque that down with it sagging, then you lower the car on it, you're going to put stress on those bushings, and that will wear those bushings out quicker than anything else. I've heard of people having control arms that wear out in a year or 6 months or something like that. I'm willing to believe that's probably because it wasn't loaded. So you need to jack up your wheel hub or ball joint or whatever so that it's level. Then you torque those bolts down. And sometimes I use that scissor jack that I have to jack that up and torque those bolts down so that I'm not putting weird stress on those bushings. So load it, then torque those bolts down. I haven't read it anywhere, but I'm pretty sure it's advisable to put thread lock on your control arm bolts and on your CV axle wheel lock on hub bolt. Okay, I got my control arm torqued down. I got my axle bolt snugged. Now I'm going to go ahead and put my wheel on. Lower the car down to the ground. Whenever you put the Volvo wheel on, make sure you line this pin up to the hole in the wheel that has the gap. These other holes have pins in them, so they don't go there. So that goes over that pin on the hub. Okay, you want to jack up the car, remove the jack stand, then you want to lower the car so that the wheel get some weight put on it, and torque down your lug nuts. Torque them down in the star pattern. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That reduces the chances of them warping your rotors. I normally put anti-seize on the mating surfaces of the lug nuts so that the lug nuts don't get stuck against the wheel surface. Go ahead and lower the car onto the ground and torque your axle bolt down to 120 foot-pounds. After you do that, you get your angle gauge and torque it another 60 degrees. I believe that's true. I'll double check it and post it on the remarks of the video. Okay, angle torque gauge is only about, I don't know, 30 bucks or something like that. You need it to do heads and certain other things. I have one. I'll go get it here in a minute. But if 60 degrees is if you're straight up, 90 degrees would be here, straight across. So 60 degrees is 2/3 of the way to 90. So if you're just going to go ahead and do it by guess, it's easy to take it and twist it 2/3 of the way to 90 degrees. So just in case you don't have an angle torque gauge with you. After you get that torqued in, go ahead and install your center cap. Take it for a test drive. If for some reason that axle pops out, it'll simply stop your car from moving. If you got any questions, go ahead and post them. If you feel that this information was beneficial, please like it and share it with your social media friends. You can also subscribe to my channel so that you can get notification of future videos that I post. Visit my channel. I have all types of do-it-yourself videos there. You can leave questions here and I'll try to respond to them as quick as possible. You can also visit my website at robertspinner.com. Thanks again for watching.